few opportunities to have all, I don't know, 350, 60, however many there are, scholars together. We have our opening and closing socials, and we have a forum once a semester. And it's great to see this energy as everybody files in. So thank you for coming. I'm super excited with today's forum. I was sharing with Jim and Bonnie that I have an app on my phone where I can take notes. And I literally have a note called Quigley. And I've written stuff every time he's been here. And I shared something, there's something in here that I repeat to my team all the time that Jim said in one of his previous visits here. It's called contractual commitment plus discretionary effort equals shared objectives. That's one of the things I talk to my team about all the time. What is it that we pay you for? Just a transactional thing that Chris and I are going to agree to that he's going to do. And then plus, what is he going to do on top of that? And that's how we win. That's at least how I interpreted it. I don't know how that was interpreted at Deloitte. There's a ton of things like that on here, and I look forward to adding more of that today. So before we get to that, I just have two housekeeping issues. Since it's the one time this semester I'm going to see all of you. Turn in your badges. Okay? I look at them. And then you should be receiving, we've got a new texting platform, so you should be getting texts from the Scholar program. If you haven't, go see Stephanie in the Scholar office. Okay, those are two housekeeping. Let's get on with the show. I'm going to introduce a Quigley ambassador, and you can talk about more what that is, and Huntsman Scholar, Caitlin Paskins, and she's going to get us ready for the show. Caitlin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin Paskins. It used to be Caitlin Hogue. That's probably how most of you know me. We had a little mix-up with Chris because of that, but I am Caitlin Paskins now. Got married, so. Thank you. It's a big accomplishment. But like Dave said, I am a Huntsman Scholar, like all of you, but I'm also a Quigley ambassador for the School of Accountancy. And maybe you've heard of that before and wondered why the heck we're called Quigley ambassadors. Sounds like a silly name, but now you know why. Because Jim Quigley has been a great support and given lots of donations and time to the School of Accountancy. So we figured it'd be great to honor him in that way as ambassadors. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest, Jim Quigley, today. He is widely recognized for his incredible business acumen and leadership skills. He spent the majority of his professional career with Deloitte, one of the big four firms I'm sure you've all heard of, and he culminated his career as the global CEO of Deloitte, so pretty big deal. But he has since retired from Deloitte, and since then he has served on numerous boards of directors, including the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. Council for International Business, and the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. So he's been super involved, lots of leadership positions. And of course, he's also a proud, true Aggie, and he, yes, go Aggies. He did go to school here, and he got his bachelor's in accounting here, so super awesome to have him back. And then Paul Johnston here, he is the Vice President for Professional Development for the Huntsman Scholar Student Leadership Board. And he's going to be moderating the conversation with Mr. Quigley today. So please join me in welcoming Jim Quigley.
Thank you, Caitlin. Just starting out, I would like you to explain a little bit about your journey to Utah State. So growing up in Kanosh, what led you to Utah State? Why did you pick Utah State?
I had two brothers here, and my mom and dad both graduated from here, and my high school football coach thought I should go to a junior college where I'd have a real chance to be the quarterback, but I thought, I'll go to Utah State. I'll walk on. And I was offered an academic scholarship, and so primarily, I think, because both of my brothers were here at the time. And I just thought, what a remarkable opportunity to be able to be at Utah State with your two older brothers.
That's wonderful. And so you've talked about how you're a values-based leader. So I want to hear a little bit about growing up in Kanosh. What were those formative years, and what principles and values did you get from them that helped you become a great leader?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paul. And I sort of struggle a little bit with the great leader. I did have the privilege of being the CEO of a really big organization, but I'm not sure I give myself the title of great leader. But one of the things that was interesting to me, and frankly surprising to many, is I was able to kind of work through the steps, the chairs, the seats, the whatever you want to describe them as, and find my way as a pretty young guy to be the secretary to our board, secretary to the operating committee, the chief of staff for the managing partner. And people would always look at me with some surprise, like, well, Jim, how do you do that? And to me, I thought, well, why are you asking this? I mean, it just seems so glaringly obvious. This is what you need to do. And so, Paul, if I were to try to get to, standards or values that might create an opportunity for someone from a town of 499, I'm not sure that's exactly where you think the leader of an organization that, when I yielded the seat, we had 175,000 people. And so I'm not sure that you think, well, that's exactly the background that I would expect. The leader of the largest professional services firm should definitely come from Kanosh. I can't think of another place that he would go. And I think that person also should have his academic credentials be a BS degree from Utah State University. I mean, where else would you find the leader of the largest professional services firm in the world? And so when I try to get back to, well, how did you do that then? And you have to humbly say, well, I was lucky. I mean, there were some things that sort of broke my way, and I was able to take advantage of them. But the other thing that I think gave me a real honest advantage is in a small, ag-based kind of community, you're going to develop a work ethic that is actually going to be part of who you are and part of what you become and part of what you're able to do. And that'll surprise some people. I mean, they're not accustomed to people that are willing to do that kind of work. And the other thing that was formative for me, I was an okay high school quarterback. I happened to earn a few distinctions, but I was really okay, not great. But I was good at getting the very best out of the team. And I was able to really think carefully about how are we going to do this? And I could, kneel down in the huddle and I could look up in their eyes and say, guys, I know you're tired. I'm tired too, but we need this first down and I need your very best. And then you'd call a play and you'd go up and you'd pick up the first down and you'd keep marching down the field. But I think some of those things on how do you help a team be their very best? How do you get them to bring the very best version of themselves? That's transportable. That stays with you. And I think it becomes enabling. And so the fundamental work ethic and then just watching, sometimes when people listen to leaders, they think, well, in order for me to learn something worthwhile about leadership, I need to listen to an academic who's done a great study. Or I need to listen to some renowned leadership writer who's written books that are widely read. And what I think is some of what it takes to be a successful leader are things that you actually learn from your mom and dad. And just watching, how did your dad treat the people that were part of his team? And what did your mom do as a school teacher in that school? And watching, and then just always learning, and then being curious about what's going to work. I just, carried those things with me. And I just got to the point of the goal here is to be the first choice. And so I just need to be the very best I can be. And I want to be someone that people want on their teams. And I want people fighting to get me on their team. And if you work that way, you're going to have fantastic opportunities. And you'll have opportunities to learn that will actually exceed the opportunities to learn that others have. And then, some magic can happen. And a little boy from southern Utah can find himself as the CEO of the largest professional services firm in the world. By the way, with a little humor intended, I yielded the seat in 2011. I know that you're young enough to think that was a really long time ago, and it happens to have been 12 years ago. And Deloitte had 175,000 people. And they miss me so aggressively, and they're struggling to get by without me to the point where today they have 450,000. They really miss me, really miss me.
Thank you, Jim. Bringing it back to your time here at Utah State, can you tell us a little bit about your journey to finding accounting? Maybe a little bit about your experience in Lizette Hale's class.
Yeah, sure. And just to emphasize the coming back to Utah State, Bonnie and I, this is a beautiful place. And this is a spectacularly beautiful place. And it was a beautiful drive to come up here. You're very lucky. This is a special valley. And we, frankly, loved our time here. We genuinely loved our time here. And my father was a forest ranger. So he graduated from this, the ag college here. And his father was a forest ranger without a degree. And so I came here with a love of the outdoors and this notion that I'm going to be a forester, of course. What else would a Quigley do that comes here? And then I went to the placement office and I just kind of wanted to get a sense of how are the forestry graduates doing in terms of getting placed in their field. And let's accept this in the directional way rather than that I actually audited these facts. But what I was told is 100 forestry graduates, 3 of them had jobs in the field. And the other 97 had to kind of redeploy. So I thought, maybe I should go to the business school. So I went to the business school, and accounting had always come easy for me. And I would sit in the business class, and all of you from the business school who are not accountants, please don't take offense at this. But when I looked at the scores that would get posted in all of the courses, the marketing course, the econ courses, the accountants kind of dominated the top of those scores. And I thought, maybe I should be an accountant. And then we got married, we started our family, and the pragmatist in me was, how are the graduates from the School of Accounting doing getting placed in the field? And the answer was spectacularly. And so I moved to a major in accounting. So I came with an ambition, frankly, I came with an ambition to play football here. My freshman year, I hung up my cleats, the smartest thing that I ever did, by the way. And then maybe one of the next smart things I did, even though I still worship the outdoors, was deciding to move to the business school, and then moving to the School of Accountancy really resonated for me, and the door of opportunity opened, and I found it fascinating to learn the language of business, which I think accounting is. And then not only learn the language of business, actually get good at it. And it was fantastic for me.
That's wonderful. Could you share a little bit about your experience specifically in Lizette Hale's class?
Well, not many of you are going to remember Lizette Hale. Probably none of you know her, but I actually loved her. She was an African-American woman, and she was the head of the School of Accountancy. And I looked at her, and she one time told us what it was like to sit for the CPA exam in Georgia as a black person. So all the white kids are taking the class on the upper floor of whatever venue they were gathered in with all kinds of natural light. And then I don't know how many, if you needed 2 hands to count them, but the black kids that were taking the CPA exam, they were sitting downstairs. But I just admired her. I just couldn't imagine what her journey was. I mean, what did she have to do to become the head of the School of Accountancy here? And what was her mountain like that she climbed? I was just awed by her. But I was also, frankly, a little bit lazy because accounting came really easy for me. And so I could sit in her classes, I could take her quizzes, and I would have the highest score on her quizzes. And then I could take her exams, and I would have the highest score on her exams. So after one semester, I went to the door, found my student number, and then I scrolled my finger across, and I knew that I had the highest test average in the class. And I scrolled my finger over, and it said A-. And I'm like, how could the guy with the highest scores on the quizzes and exams get an A-? This makes no sense to me. There must be a mistake. So I went to Dr. Hale, and I said, I was really surprised when I saw my grade as an A-. And she said, well, Mr. Quigley, did you give me your very best? And truth be told, I sat on the back row in classroom participation, and I did 0 in classroom participation. I could take her tests, and I knew how to nail those tests. And then she said, do you think you really gave me your very best? Did I get the very best from Jim Quigley? Do you really think you deserve an A? Or do you think that A- is the right grade for you? And it was sort of an interesting sort of call to action, because I'd heard my mother say to me many times, Jimmy, where much is given, much is expected. But I've never heard Dr. Hale say that to me. But it was a good wake-up call. And I decided, okay, give a little more in the class. Don't be so content with that back row where you're so comfortable. And apply yourself and network and connect. And I think it created more opportunities for me. I think she did the right thing to bust me in the chops, even though I thought for sure she'd made a mistake. But she kind of made it clear to me she didn't think she'd made a mistake. Only I thought she'd made a mistake.
Thank you. So you've stated that the degree gives you the opportunity to have a job, but that a job gives you the opportunity to obtain a real education. Could you explain a little bit more about what you mean like this and how we can become lifelong learners?
I think that ambition of lifelong learners is something that we should all embrace. And I, frankly, even though I've had a lot of birthdays, I think I'm still learning. I was sitting with school district leaders today and the day before and talking about what it takes to be a successful principal in one of our schools. And I like listening to them. I like hearing their stories, and it's fascinating to me. But I think if we think about the degree as, opening the door, and then walk through it to go get an education. And what I learned from Deloitte was remarkable. I'm proud of what I learned here. I'm not taking anything away from Utah State University. I would have never been recruited by Deloitte without my degree here. I recognize and acknowledge that. But I would have never been the CEO of Deloitte without listening carefully to what it takes to be successful at Deloitte. And then I like to think of myself, we all have heard countless times Lou Gehrig go to the microphone in Yankee Stadium after he had been diagnosed with what became known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And then we think about this remarkable baseball player. And he said, I think I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And all of these fans in Yankee Stadium went crazy. But what I choose to think about is I think I'm the luckiest guy in professional services because of the path that was laid for me and the road that I had the privilege of traveling and the things that I had the opportunity to do. It's just, I think I'm a lucky guy, really lucky guy.
You've spoken a lot about luck tonight, but I was talking to Bonnie beforehand, and she mentioned to me how you've told your children that when that door of opportunity opens, that you need to walk through it, that there's a reason that it's opened for you. So us as students, sometimes we have these opportunities that open in front of us. What are ways that we can go through those doors and know that they're open for us for a reason, and that we don't feel that imposter syndrome as bad.
I think to just sort of share a story on why I like that notion of Bonnie's point about being the opportunity seeker. I just think the point is best made if we contrast opportunity seeking with entitlement thinking. And so to just try to punctuate that point, at a certain moment, my career at Deloitte was progressing nicely, and there were clients that actually were trying to recruit me. And I was a young man, had a young family, and I was recruited by Wayne Condon at Security Pacific Bank in Reno. And he said, Jim, I'm very impressed by you, and I'm building my team, and I'd love to have you be the controller of Security Pacific Bank here in Reno. He offered to double my salary, offered me this preferential mortgage rate. I can't remember if he was offering a car, but it sort of sounded good to me, like he's going to double my salary. So I went to Gus Glissmeyer, the head of the Salt Lake office, and I said, Wayne Condon has recruited me, and I've decided to accept his offer. And Gus, to his credit, said, Jim, not so fast. I respect that Wayne wants you, but you've got an opportunity here at Deloitte. I'd like you to go meet with Howard Cast in Denver. So to just help you try to understand that I'm 26 years old, I'm a senior accountant, I'm like Mr. Nobody. Howard Cast is on the operating committee of Deloitte. He's the Western region managing partner. He's like a big deal, like a really big deal. And Gus thought Howard could convince me to call Wayne Condon back and say, I'm not coming to Security Pacific Bank. So he asked me to fly to Denver. So I get on the plane, fly to Denver, heavy snow the night before, 6 inches of snow, go to the Brown Palace Cafe to have breakfast with Howard. And this is how the breakfast started. Jim, I understand you're a hotshot senior accountant from Salt Lake City who's ready to go make order out of chaos at some client that needs you. Well, what are you going to do after you've made order out of chaos? And I'm like, wow, I'm glad I came to Denver to listen to this. And then a few minutes later in the conversation, he said, Jim, if you think you've learned everything there is to learn as a senior accountant in Salt Lake City, why don't you take an assignment in New York? Why don't you go to New York and work in our research department? And I thought, the furthest east Bonnie's ever been is Fort Collins. I'm sure she really wants to go to New York City. Vernal.
Never been across the state line east.
But anyway, that just really opened the door of opportunity for me. And I said yes. I called Wayne Condon back. I'm really delighted that I did. I'm sure I would have been a great controller at Security Pacific Bank, but I'm really glad that I didn't do that. So I go to New York. And now to try to get to the point that you're making. So I walk into New York, and frankly, I'm a little embarrassed about it. But the way the world looked to me was, I was one of the top graduates from Utah State University. All of the big 8 firms tried to recruit me, offered me jobs. And not everybody got all of that. And frankly, I was very successful in Salt Lake City. All the managers wanted me on their jobs. So I walked into Deloitte's New York office, their national office, with this attitude. I'm Jim Quigley from Salt Lake City. Give me a great experience. And I actually think that I thought they were going to put it on a silver platter and hand it to me, that I was entitled to that. I said no to this client that offered to double my salary. I agreed to move to New York. Give me a great experience. And I had this mental image. People in Salt Lake City really work hard. I mean, they work hard. They get up early, they work late. The New Yorkers, they get to work at 9 o'clock. They leave at 5. I was going to get a manager bonus. I mean, what's not to like about this? And so for the first 3 weeks I was there, I knew what train to catch from Connecticut to walk in the office at 9. And I knew if I walked out at 5, what train I could catch home. So I did that for 3 weeks. And then we had a meeting with Mike Sutton, who was the head of the research department. There were 15 managers there. And he says, I'm a little disappointed with what I'm seeing and the way some of you are working. Your 23-month assignment in the national office is going to go by so quickly that you're going to be amazed when it's over. And you might have squandered the opportunity that you had with getting deployed here. I go to the train, ride the train home, and I chose to think he was talking to me. He's disappointed in what he's seen from me. And I need to up my game. There's probably a train that leaves Westport, Connecticut earlier than 7:30. And there's probably even a train that gets back to Westport, Connecticut, frankly, later than 6:15. And so I bowed my neck and I went after it. And I say boastfully that the National Office Accounting and Auditing Group rate the managers in the Accounting and Auditing Group from top to bottom. And when I left, I was number 1 out of 57. And what I think I did was I took my entitlement thinking that I went there with. The reality of it is, in all humility, there was no one in New York that could care less about Salt Lake City. I thought I was really a hotshot showing up there, like they were thrilled to have me. They could care less. But when you apply yourself and really get after it and take that entitlement thinking, put it in a box, get some packing tape, tape it up, throw it in the basement, and then don't ever open that entitlement thinking box again, and instead become an opportunity seeker. And the options that opportunity seekers have is so much richer and so much broader than the options available to entitlement thinkers. You might think, and I'm exaggerating and overdoing this, and my mother would say, Jim, it's time to stop, but you might be part of the Huntsman Scholar Program. You might be pretty full of yourself about that. You might think when every employer comes to this campus, they're dying to see you. They're hoping they have a privilege of speaking to you. And as a member of the Huntsman Scholar Program, you're entitled to anything you want in this world. And everybody's going to beat a path to your door. You might be surprised if entitlement thinking is where you are. But if you become an opportunity seeker, let me tell you, the world can become yours. A little boy from southern Utah can become the CEO of Deloitte. But you have to be an opportunity seeker to do that. And when that door of opportunity opens, instead of thinking, New York? How's the fishing in New York? How about the skiing in New York? What do the mountains look like in New York? What about the distance from my immediate family? That sounds like a stupid idea to go to New York. I'm not going to go. And you let that opportunity go. But there's opportunities in New York. It's a fantastic city. Sorry, I overdid that. I promise I have a short answer to the next question you ask. I'll say yes or no.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. What?
Careful what you ask.
So, as we've been talking, you've talked a lot about all these different principles and values that we can have. If you had to sum it up into 1 or 2 principles that you feel you've lived your life by, what have those been?
I think to learn to respect others and treat them with respect, and then be an effective member of a team. Almost anything of substance that gets accomplished as a team. So if you can team and you can work together effectively as a team and you can help everybody on that team succeed, life is going to be good for you. And you really do have to be able to respect others, have an ability to team, and have an ability to communicate. And lots of good things will happen for you. They happen for me, at least.
Thank you. So now we'd like to transition into our Q&A section. I know that there's a lot of students that really want to ask valuable questions, things that are very important to them. We'd like to thank each of the scholars that responded to our survey that we sent out. We had an overwhelming amount of responses, and we're very happy with that. So thank you, everybody that responded to that. So we're now going to open it up to Q&A. So if you could raise your hand, and Callan and Katie will come and pass around the microphones. If you could also stand up and state your name before you ask the question, that'd be great.
Hi, my name is Alex Vi, and I'm graduating in accounting this semester. And I guess my question is, what's your biggest tip for people who are applying to internship at Deloitte?
Work your network. Work your network, and don't squander the opportunity when you get that chance for an interview. Don't squander those 30 minutes. And in those 30 minutes, make that interview think, wow, I would love to get this candidate to a yes. And you have to be able to market yourself, and you have to be able to believe. And it's one of those times where you have to be able to thread the needle of, I'm not arrogant, but I'm confidently humble.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Emmy Haywood. I want to know what the book you've thought about the most has been, like the book you've read in the past year that you've thought about the most.
First of all, Bonnie reads like 320 books for every one that I read, so you should ask Bonnie that question. But the book that I really got enamored with recently was Doris Kearns Goodwin's book, Leadership in Turbulent Times. And what I found fascinating about it is, as someone who didn't have the same political persuasion as FDR, I frankly didn't know anything about FDR. And I found it fascinating what she shared about FDR and what he did during the Depression. And frankly, his own personal journey was fascinating. I've always been enamored with Teddy. And Teddy Roosevelt, you can sort of see, I understand why he's on Mount Rushmore. And then she also goes through Lincoln. And we all almost borderline worshiped Lincoln in terms of the leadership that he provided to our country at that moment. And then finally, another president that I knew little about was LBJ. And Doris Kearns Goodwin, as a very young woman, was LBJ's communication director. But I loved that book, and I just thought it was fascinating to look at those political leaders and then frankly even to reflect on our own world, because I think we would say we live in turbulent times. But I thought she did a beautiful job with that book, and I did like it very much.
My name is Brandon Lloyd. You spoke a lot about being an opportunity seeker. How would you advise us to be an opportunity seeker and also balance what's important to us in our personal lives?
I think on the balance side of things, I always like to replace that word with the word integration. But the reality of it is, our life has to fit into our work, and our work has to fit into our life. And if you're in an environment where that's no longer true, you actually have to do some things different. I mean, you have to either A, change jobs, or B, you have to do something to get to the point where your life's going to fit into your work, and your work's going to fit into your life, and you're going to have a life. And your life's going to have multiple dimensions. And that opportunity-seeking notion isn't that you need to sacrifice and just simply throw away everything that might be part of what you call your personal life. You need to make those dimensions work. And if you can make those dimensions work, you're going to be happy. If you're happy, you're going to do quality work. And if you're doing quality work, you'll have a sense of optimism. And then before you know it, people are going to want to be around you, because people like people who have some optimistic attitude and sense about where they're going. But I think you can find the way to be both an opportunity seeker and a successful life liver because the multiple dimensions of your life are going to fit together. You're going to be able to integrate a life with multiple dimensions. And it's actually going to make you more effective when you're at work also. You don't have to choose between, do I want to have a career or do I want to have a life? That isn't the right choice. Can I have a successful career and have a successful life? Absolutely, you should aspire to that. You should work hard to make it happen, and you can.
So we have one up here.
My name is Lily Vaughn. My question is, what is the most important takeaway you had from your time working at Deloitte?
I guess I would just come back to the Deloitte culture and the importance of Deloitte's shared values. And one of those values was, take care of each other. This commitment to each other, to help each other succeed. And it's far too emotional for me to amplify, but I'll just simply say that on 9/11, when I walked away from the World Financial Center with those twin towers, burning behind me and disaster unfolding, we knew what to do because of the values of Deloitte and our commitment to take care of each other. And we went after that. And I let that stay with me. And I think of 9/11 as a before and after event. It's one of those that you use to measure time. Before I was married, where's Caitlin? After I was married. Before I graduated from the Huntsman School, after I graduated. For me in business, before 9/11, after 9/11. But what I saw that day and the culture and fabric of Deloitte that I witnessed and was very much a part of, that's a very big takeaway for me. Yesterday, there's things I could have been doing, but I chose to sit in my car after the meeting that I had in the morning and zoom into a celebration of life of one of my partners who passed away last week. And he's 82 years old. And he was a Jewish partner and a great guy. And I liked him very much. And when we were putting Deloitte, Haskins & Sells and Touche Ross together, there were only 6 people in the room. And Al was one of those guys in the room. And I happened to be in the room. But that importance of people, and then just this idea of being colleagues for life, that's a takeaway for me. And the new partner meeting of Deloitte was 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas. And surprising to me, but they asked me if I would come and speak to 700 new partners, principals, and managing directors. And, it wasn't hard for me to say yes. It's like, I'd be honored to go. But it's just that importance of people. And then the fabric of Deloitte is just the notion of colleagues for life is something that went away with me.
Hi, my name is Eric Pesci. You mentioned that you had some experiences in high school sports. I relate a lot to that. What's the biggest lesson that you've taken from high school sports, and if it's carried on throughout your life?
I think, how do you get the very best from the team? I mean, how do you get the team to be the very best version of themselves? How do you get that little extra? And I think that stayed with me. That stayed with me. And then, even though the world has changed, and perhaps I didn't change as quickly as I could have or should have, but I actually believe to get the very best from people, you need to look them in the eye, not send them a text or send them an email. And I always just did the people side of things first and the machine side of things second, and many times I didn't ever get to the machine side of things. When I was in the CEO seat, I had conference room A and conference room B. And my first meeting would be in conference room A, and my secretary would be teeing up the second meeting in conference room B. I'd resolve the meeting A, and then I'd just step to the next room. But then just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But it just goes back to that notion of the importance of people that was just so fundamental to who I was and what I tried to do and how I tried to lead. And Dean Patel made reference to this notion of the difference between contractual commitment and what happens if all you get is the contractual commitment. One of the things that I do now in these days is I work on leadership development to help education leaders. So I was with a group of principals today, I was with another group of principals yesterday, and we're just constantly trying to help them think about how you're going to get the very best from that team. And if you are the principal of, and now fill in the blank, high school X, middle school Y, elementary school Z, and you've got a bunch of faculty, and they belong to the union, and they know what their contract requires. If all you are able to do as the leader is get the contractual commitment out of that team, how are the students in that building going to perform? What do you think that building is going to look like if everything stops at the contractual commitment? And where I think the winning edge is found is when you get the contractual commitment and then you add the discretionary effort, or another way of saying it, you get the very best from people. I mean, they bring the very best of themselves. And they do that day after day after day. Now you have the winning edge. And the way that I think you get there is, frankly, the same way a quarterback gets the very best from his team when you're heading up to that line. And I think you have to look them in the eye. And then you have to be a demanding leader, but you also have to be demanding on yourself. And I think that sports is just an interesting little microcosm of life that gives us a chance to look at, like, Coach K. I mean, the coach of Duke for 34 years. I mean, you can learn some things from watching Coach K. You can learn some things by reading his books. And what happens, my view, and I'll acknowledge that not everybody will agree with this, but what does it take to get the very best from a team in the military? What does it take to be a great military leader? Let's write the attributes on the board of Colin Powell, the greatest general of our time, in my view. What were the attributes of a successful military leader? Now, what were the attributes of Coach K, or frankly, any sports figure? What are the attributes to be successful in sports? What does it take to be successful in education? When I'm speaking about leadership to high school principals, what is it that I'm getting them to aspire to do? And can I get them to catch the vision of the attributes of a successful principal? And then what does it take in business? And what I think is, if you looked at all four of those circles, military, sports, education, business, and you could have more circles, but I think the attributes for success are going to look very similar. And so for me, I know it's humorous, even like we shouldn't even be serious when we say these things, but high school athletes learn a lot. And there's some lessons in those sports outcomes that actually apply in other dimensions of your life. Because as I said before, I think anything of substance that gets done in the world is always done as a team. Where do you really learn how to team? And as teenagers on a sports team, it is a remarkable laboratory. I mean, it is a remarkable laboratory, my view. Even though I make fun of people that all they can talk about is high school sports, I think they're silly. And so I know there's lots of people in the room who feel exactly the same.
My name is Ryan Suhaka. I'm a business management major. You've given us a lot of amazing things to think about, almost action items. I loved what you said about being from a small town and going to Deloitte. But I'm curious on the other side, kind of the do-nots. What are some common mistakes or traps that you see young people entering the business world fall into, and maybe how would you avoid them?
Well, you know, my first headline is my entitlement thinking versus opportunity seeking. I do think that young people can sometimes get trapped in that world, but we're oversimplifying something that's, you know, really, really complicated. And I think sometimes maybe we get pretty enamored with what we know and understand, and then believe that everybody should know and understand this, and everybody should think this way. And so I think it's sometimes challenging for us to embrace all of the dimensions of diversity and all that we can learn from people who have diverse experiences and diverse perspectives and what they can bring, and how the product that a team is going to create is actually going to be dramatically richer if it's coming out of a diverse team than the product that comes from a team of everybody who looks exactly the same and thinks exactly the same. And so getting to that, it sort of goes back to that importance of respect for the individual, but also just respect for the perspective. And, you know, can we get to the point of view or the perspective that we're able to respect the views of others? You guys are so stinking smart, it's like full-on amazing to me. And it's full-on amazing to me, the data that's available to you as digital natives. And as a baby boomer, you guys are sometimes jaw-dropping to me. The executive director of my foundation is jaw-dropping to me, what he's able to do with technology. It's unbelievable to me what he's able to do. And if you can bring that distinct, unique capability to a team and then still value the experience of others on the team, now I think some magic is going to happen.
Hi, I'm Jaron Pugmire, and you've talked a little bit about the importance of confidence and humility. So what advice would you have for us on how we can develop those two things without becoming arrogant?
And it's a great question. It's frankly a pretty tough needle to thread in some ways, because you think that confidence and arrogance sound like those are mates that actually belong in the same envelope. But I think you can be humbly confident if it's possible to sort of think that way. I used to start meetings sometimes with an apology. I earlier made reference to the late Gus Glissmeyer, a friend of Bonnie's, friend of mine, someone that we really did respect. And I was a young man. I mean, I was really a young man. And I think I was overdoing the humility part of that equation, because I would many times start with a sentence of apology. I'm sorry, I'm sure this isn't as perfect as it could be. And one time Gus interrupted me. He said, "Jim, you apologize too much." And having that ability to be confident, somebody that people actually want on your team, but yet humble enough to recognize, I may not know everything. I want to ask a boatload of questions, and I want to listen carefully to what people have. And I think by being curious and willing to accept that there's still things to learn, but yet confident, I'm coming to the team and I can contribute, and having people want you to be on the team is a very, very important attribute. Because with that confidence, I think, will also come, a sense of optimism. And then now the tone just changed. That optimistic tone is Colin Powell on his, 15 lessons of life, or I don't remember how long his list is. It's at least 15, but one of them is optimism is a force multiplier. And how do you become optimistic if you don't also enjoy some confidence? So I think confidence matters, but arrogance can get in the way.
I'm Kaiden Lee. I'm a dual major accounting data analytics, and I've been sitting here thinking about a lot of it you said, and you've alluded to the topic multiple times of developing priorities and ethics. And in our phase currently, we have this period of self-discovery, and I'd like to get your understandings, especially if you were in our shoes, 20 to 25, how can we better become something that will optimize our life? How do we make sure that we implement the right strategies and actions that are actually going to lead to success?
And that's a tough question. I wish I had a really pithy response. But I think the notion of who are you and what do you want to be? I was reading yesterday, I was getting ready for one of my leadership discussions with education leaders. And so, because I'm a little bit enamored with Coach K, I used to be on the Duke Center for Leadership and Ethics. And in fairness, it was the Coach K Duke or Fuqua Business School Center for Leadership and Ethics. And Coach K was just sort of a magnet that got me to say yes and to go there. And one of the things that he said in this, he was interviewed by one of the professors that we were working there, and they were trying to extract from Coach K his perspective on leadership. And one of the things he said was quite striking to me. He says to his assistant coaches, and if you would see Coach K on the bench, there's like 4 assistant coaches, and if you watch a Duke basketball practice, those 4 assistant coaches, they run the railroad. Coach K's there, but I mean, those assistants really drive it. And what he said was really quite fascinating to me. He said, I tell my staff all the time, don't try to be me. If you try to be me, you're going to fail. I want you to be you. I want you to be the very best version of you. And when you come as your very best self, I was, my view, a successful leader. I'm not sure I'd put the word great with it. But what do you think would have happened to me if I tried to be Winston Churchill? Colossal failure. I'm not Winston Churchill. But when I tried to be the very best Jim Quigley I could be, in the room, I could get people to go with me. And then you just have to have a set of values that will shape and define you so that when the wind blows, and the wind will blow, if you decide you're just going to go the direction of the wind wherever the wind takes you, it's not going to be particularly interesting. But if you figure out who you are and you work hard to be the very best version of you, and you have the values of the things that you will do and the things that you won't do, you'll stand in the wind. And as the wind blows, you'll just get stronger. And I think that's why I really believe in a values-based approach to leadership, because in a storm, what are you going to turn to? At 9/11, when I was in Henry Ferrero's apartment on the 26th floor, 2 blocks south of the World Trade Center, and the South Tower comes down, what are you going to do? I had 3,500 people in the World Financial Center. Are you going to panic? You couldn't even see across the street, and the streets in downtown New York are narrow. It was unlike anything that I had ever seen in my life. That's why I use the words before and after to describe it. So what do? You go to those anchor points of your values and you let that drive your action. And if one of your values is commitment to each other, then you know exactly what to do. And you get about doing it. But I love Coach K's words of, don't try to be somebody else. Be the very best version of you. And then be quite thoughtful and intentional about what is that best version of me. And you're going to have people that are going to want to work with you. You're going to have people who are going to want you on their team. And then as you demonstrate an ability to work as a teammate, really good things are going to happen for you. My view.
Thank you so much, Jim. I think that's about our time. And so we want to we have a small gift for you. thank you so much for coming out and being willing here today to be willing to talk to us.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's good fun. Good fun to be with you. Thank you, everyone. I return the applause.